Welcome to the Embodied Union podcast. I'm Linzey Beister.
I'm Charlie Hannah.
And today we're going to be talking about
how do you hold yourself when your partner wobbles? Like if your partner's having a human moment, if they're falling down, if they're dysregulated, what do? Because often where couples fall down is when one is triggered, the other is triggered. One is wobbling, the other is wobbling. One is dysregulated, so now I'm dysregulated. And that gets us nowhere fast.
Yeah, especially if we're both anxious, which we are. We're both anxious leaning. And I guess for the opposite of that is if they're avoidant, it could be my partner wobbles, so I fucking disappear,
I gotta go.
And I think this really just boils down to how do we get modeled relationship and how do we perceive our partner maybe a bit like our caregivers in a way, not consciously, but it's like if mum and dad are not good, well, what do I have to do to survive? And it sort of really boils down deep into this realm of what do we do with our partners and what do we do with ourselves in these moments? I think it's really a big topic, but also just super important for people that are in relationship that really want to have a conscious relationship and have a great experience in a thriving relationship. What do we do?
I think the same with every topic we talk about, it's always what's the antidote? And it's always multi-layered, but the first thing is always having a level of self-awareness, because we need to understand, I need to understand as a human, I'm a meaning-making machine. So based on my experiences in childhood, based on my relationship blueprint, based on my attachment style, whatever it is, my makeup, when you're having an experience, I'm seeing it through a lens of my conditioning and programming, and I'm making it mean something.
Yeah.
So if you're dysregulated or you're triggered or whatever it is, I'm already coming up with a whole story around what that means for me and our relationship and what possibly is going on for you. So the first thing that everyone needs to understand is you're a meaning-making machine, and the meaning that you make is not necessarily the truth. And so you have to have a level of awareness to know that that's operating, that's the mechanism that you're operating with, because then it creates a little bit of separation from just being so identified in the story and the meaning you're making, and wait a minute, can I be curious with what I'm creating right now?
So that to me is probably where most people are falling down, is they're making it mean something about them and feeling like it's the truth or it's real and not being curious.
Yes, it's the lack of self-awareness is number one for most couples who aren't practicing this conscious style of relating. It's more unconscious. They are just assuming the meanings and the perceptions that they make are fact. It's true. This is the way it is. And we've got two people who are doing that with two different models of the world. So you can see how these two people constantly are in conflict.
Are you telling me my feelings aren't facts?
I love that statement. Feelings are not facts, which is not me saying that they're not valid. Your experience is valid. Your feelings are valid, but they don't necessarily have anything based in truth and the fact of what's actually going on.
Yeah, and I think having the experience of, say being in relationship where one person is almost more of the wobbly one, it can be that way that in a relationship you might find yourself in one relationship where you feel super wobbly, and then in another relationship the other person feels more wobbly than you. So I think, that it can vary and it can change over time. It's not one way or it's always another way. It's just moment to moment. What are we making it mean, and what are we doing when we're in that relationship and in those moments?
Similar to attachment styles, right? It's not fixed. Different people will bring out different versions, will feel different. But where I really see this be a problem for couples, and it's been a problem for me, is when you get a couple and they're very enmeshed with one another. Mm-hmm. There's a level of codependency, and so I really like this visualization of a couple standing side by side and they're linking arms. And so if one is having a moment, triggered, dysregulated, and they're wobbling around, the other one, because their arms are linked, they're wobbling as well. It's you go down together. Whereas you want to be able to establish a level of sovereignty in both, that we can be standing together side by side, but we're holding hands. So if you're wobbling, my hand might be wobbling, but I'm actually still very centered. I've got myself. So what we do with couples and what our journey together is supporting this level of solid attachment, feeling secure in ourselves, so we can give each other grace to have our moments, for you to be triggered and for me to not make it about me, for me to not take it personally. And it's one of the biggest gifts you can give your partner, to like give them grace to be a human, because you're dating a human.
Yeah, I think of that. I think of like, say, as a man having the experience of, say, being overwhelmed or stressed with work or with whatever it might be, and in that feeling dysregulated, it's almost like it dysregulates our partner, that we're not solid. Like the rock all of a sudden isn't the rock anymore, and it can really like create a lot of like, oh, and it's that feeling of, you know, I guess I know in my case, in my experience of like being wobbly and then my partner wobbling means that I have to try and stop my wobbling like mid wobble and then go back to sort of like, not caretaking, but sort of like
caretaking,
but like making the relationship like less tumultuous in a way, so it can be, I guess in a way, like co-regulation and soothed back to like an equilibrium where there can be something that shows up.
This is what I meant when I said it's like, it's a disservice to your partner. Like if you have a trigger, say you're stressed, and then I start taking that personally and making it about me, you have to put that down to now manage me. And it's just such a disservice to your experience of life. Like I'm taking you away from something that you're already having to manage. I'm adding to the plate. I'm stretching like your capacity. And like this is like, we've been in this experience. Like have had a pattern of when you're triggered, I'm triggered. Because it's like I make it mean you're stressed, something's wrong with the relationship. And like I really do see how it's such a gift if I can allow you to be in your stress and not make it about me, even if it is about me, which is like ninja level relating. So
it's just supporting the person.
It just allows you to be you, and it allows you to manage whatever you've got to manage without having to take your attention onto whatever story I've come up with. So
yeah, and I think then like what can couples do? It's like, you know, really in those moments of when our partner is dysregulated, it's like how can we support them and not add to it, and give them space if that's what they need, or whatever it is that makes them feel like, you know, because I guess knowing your partner's attachment style, knowing your partner well means that you kind of, I say this to men all the time, it doesn't just rain. Usually you can see the clouds brewing, like you can kind of see it coming. And having this level of awareness, like you said, is like when we become more self-aware, we can then hold space better and be more aware with our partners as well. So our ability to hold space, our ability to co-regulate, all benefits and all gets better when we are more self-aware ourselves. And I think that's super powerful and important for each individual, no matter if they're in relationship or not in relationship, is to be working on this stuff. So when it does arise, ready.
Yeah, I think self-awareness is the foundation. And then the next part would be to really be flexing open communication. You know, it's like if you're triggered and I'm noticing it's bringing something up in me, it's like the tendency could be to go up into my head and perpetuate a story. But if I have that level of awareness around, okay, this is happening, then how can we actually now name it? How can we self-reveal? Like self-revealing is always the antidote that we'll come back to with this stuff, because it's, if you're triggered, if you can even name that first, it's like letting me in that you're in overwhelm, you're in stress. So I already am like, okay, this is his stuff. And then if it starts to bring up something in me, it's like I get to still name that.
Yeah.
I don't need to make you responsible for it, which I think a lot of couples do, and I've definitely done. But it's like I'm just naming that your experience is impacting me. Like I am impacting it, but I also have got it. Like I'm going to manage this because you've got a lot, and neither of us need to take the other personally, that we're managing something internally. So I'm just such an advocate for self-revealing. I fucking love it. It's like, you don't need to guess. There's no guesswork, wondering where we're at. It's just, can we just keep naming the internal experiences that we're each having? So we just, and this is my anxious attachment talking. This is why I love it. Because if someone feels more anxious, what they're genuinely, like, what they're looking for is reassurance.
Yes.
That eases the anxiety. So it's like when things are on the table, we all know where we're at.
Yeah. And I think, just coming back to this whole talk or this podcast episode around like, can you let your partner wobble and without like, impacting on it more, and how do you support that person? What's even another way that we could add support in that is like, do we get support? Is it a therapy session? Is it, time to them? And having a plan, I think, is really important, because I say this to men too. It's like, it's not an if, it's a when you're going to have conflict. So you better have a plan. So the same for this. It's like, if I'm having a wobble, we kind of like pick it up. Maybe it's the first time in relationship that it happens, but we name it, like you said, and then what do we need in those moments? What's actually going to be of service? Is it talking to somebody, holding space, journaling, like whatever the resource is that's supportive and helpful, so that we can communicate that to each other and come together? Because I feel like anytime we have a wobble, it's kind of showing us where we're maybe unable to sort of hold what's going on for ourselves. So it's an opportunity for growth, and it's also that opportunity to let our partner in and to support us as well. So can we receive that from our partner, their support and nourishment, when we are a bit dysregulated? Because I think that's a big challenge too at times. When I'm dysregulated, can I not see you as like my enemy, and can I see you as my teammate? And that you are supportive and that you do have me, and even if you are triggered by what's happening, there's still that level of, you're here, we love each other, we're committed, and making that work.
Yeah, I think having a conflict plan it's important, which again rests on the foundation of awareness. I know me, I know what I need, I know you, you know what you need. We've made agreements around, like, when we do get into these conflict moments, or you're triggered or I am, we already kind of have the plan ready to go. So it's just having these kinds of really open conversations, knowing yourself well, knowing your partner, is what sets up a really powerful, conscious, embodied relationship. And I really don't believe it's never too early to have these conversations. Like, when we got together, we were setting our relationship up powerfully from the very beginning.
Yes.
Which is why now, 2 years, it's not the longest time, but 2 years, there's zero resentment. There's zero water under the bridge. There's zero unhealed hurts. There's zero unspoken words, because we set it up powerfully from the get-go. So anyone who's listening to this, it's never too early. Women always ask me, when can I start having these conversations with the guy that I'm dating? I'm like, as soon as it starts to move towards something official, it's like, what do you actually want this relationship to look like? Because we're going to move into conflict at times. Life is going to be life. How can we set it up so powerfully? I
so agree with that. Like, this dancing around and not really saying what you want to say, and it's like, it sounds exhausting, that level of like, and I get it, there's an element of like surprise and wonder and fascination, but you can create that as well as knowing. It's like, it's not an either or thing. It's not a game that you've got to play or strategize to get right. Like, the truth doesn't need a strategy.
Exactly.
Authenticity
doesn't need a strategy.
Hell no. So it's like, if this is what feels right for you, and it's going to risk the relationship to have like a conversation that sets the relationship up powerfully,
it's not it.
It's not it. And if it's not it, good. Next.
Now we know.
French, the French guy. Next. Just like, keep
really
going.
Great. And I think like, it really touches into like, why do people hesitate? Why do they hesitate to lean in or self-reveal or to have the conversations? And I think we're coming around to working with these like attachment styles, or like self-worth deficits. It's like, don't want to rock the boat, don't want to say too much, don't want to appear a certain way. But it's like, if we can just give permission to everyone just to be authentically themselves, and that right person's going to come along, and it's going to, I don't know, I want to set up a relationship from the get-go, and I want to know someone wants to do that with me, and I want to know if they don't. Yeah.
And I think that's super relevant. And I guess there's one more part of this, is sometimes when we're in the wobble as a person, we might not be aware of it ourselves, and our partner knowing us so well is sometimes it's maybe they might bring to us. So I definitely foresee that for men, that their woman might notice.
Can I speak into this?
Before they do?
I know this is my experience, and whether it's women or females or people that are just highly sensitive, like it's potentially even trauma, to be so hyper vigilant and so, like, this is part of the anxious attachment, to be so aware of my partner. So you'll come into the room and my
breathing is off.
I'm like, your breathing is off, or you're looking a bit shifty, and I'm just like, what's up wrong? And you literally sometimes are like, I'm fine. And it's like, I could go into my head and be like, I know better, lies, da-da-da. It's like, how can I actually self-regulate through that? I might be right, most of the time I am, but if you're not even aware of it yet, me then projecting what's wrong, something's wrong, doesn't actually give you space to, it might give you the invitation to check in.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, something is there. But often I've fallen into the trap of being like, something is wrong. And then my partner is like, I'm fine. And I'm like, and then I'm off the rails. That's when I feel a wobble that might not even be there, probably is, but it's like just a little one. But then I'm wobbling like crazy all over the place, and it perpetuates this big thing. So it's like, at the end of the day, self-regulation is a skill that every human needs to master.
And another way to think about that is just sovereignty. If I'm over here, and Charlotte's over there, self-regulated and sovereign, cool's a cucumber. Like you said,
I get
the hand.
that, like, we're impacted by our partner, but it's a constant practice. It's like, especially when you have a relationship where communication is really open and there is trust. It's like, I can trust this man. I can trust that he can be in a wobble, or he might not even know what it is, but I don't need to take it personally because I trust him and I trust the relationship. So like, trust and vulnerability is so important so that I can self-regulate, because I know deep down that we are good. So like, self-regulation is essential. Co-regulation, and that can be with closeness, or it could also be giving you space to allow you. It's like whatever's actually needed, whatever supports the system, the dynamic.
Yes.
Co-regulation, self-regulation, self-awareness,
mm-hmm.
and then having these kind of conversations where you're self-revealing and naming. I feel like that, if a couple can master these things, and you never really master them, but if you're in the practice of them, then when your partner wobbles, I might not have to wobble so much.
And that's it, I think. So,
do you feel like that's really sums that up?
Yeah, I just want to keep it concise, because I feel like that's powerful for people in relationship that want this level of skill, want this level of awareness, and want the tools. So
it's a practice as well. It's always a practice. We still fall down, but it's how quickly you can come back to repair when you do fall down.
Yeah, so we work with couples with embodied union. Charlotte works with women. I work with men, and this is what we do. So thank you so much for tuning in to the Embodied Union podcast. Hope to see you guys all next week for the next episode.
Big love.
Bye. Love you, critter.